While we're doing reaching out, I think I will call the meeting to order. We have, for the most part, all the board members in attendance. And because we have a number of instructions as we proceed in, what is this, our fourth Zoom meeting? I don't think we lose any ground by moving forward with that. It's great to have everybody here with us. And as we do now, as our new tradition is, we will begin with Adam giving us a number of instructions. I encourage everybody in the audience and board members to listen to these carefully. It makes a difference on how we proceed. So Adam, you want to go ahead and take that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I will give brief instructions for this meeting. We are using the Zoom webinar platform. We will support public participation in this meeting. If you are connecting by phone, please be sure to mute your microphone or phone by dialing *6 to mute and unmute. When you are called upon to speak, please eliminate background noises before unmuting your microphone. Board members, if you wish to make a comment on any of the agenda items, please use the raised hand feature on your Zoom or physically raise your hand so we could see you. Members of the public, we will give the members of the public the opportunity to comment after each agenda item. After the board's discussion of all of the information items, there will be an opportunity for public comment on any of the information items. Agenda item 6 is the opportunity for any of the members of the public to make a comment on any agenda items or other comments in general. You will have 2 minutes for your public comment. Participants who wish to make a public comment, please email public comment, one word, at bscc.ca.gov with your name and the agenda item you'd like to comment on. This email address is available on our homepage as well. You can also use the raised hand feature on your Zoom video. If you are calling by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. I will call out the phone number you dialed in with. Unmute your phone by dialing *6. You will be called upon to speak in the order your name or phone number was received. We will lower your hand once your name is shared with the host. Madam Chair, that concludes my instructions.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Moving on to our first order of business, and I'm going to ask Secretary Allison to put herself back on video while we chat about her. I'm excited to announce that she was appointed as the Secretary of CDCR, and she, by virtue of that appointment, becomes a member of the BSCC. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Secretary Allison, and even a couple of these I found sort of interesting. She's been in numerous leaderships at CDCR. She's been there 30 years. None of that's very surprising, but I did read she was a registered nurse. Who knew? A woman of very, very backgrounds. She has a depth and breadth of experience I think that this board will benefit from, and even better than that, she has the demeanor and an openness and an optimistic attitude that I think is something that all of us embrace during these days and times. So I now ask you, Secretary, you're going to get a chance to speak after we administer the oath, although I do like to speak a lot for everybody, but I'll
Linda, I know you well.
So I'd ask you to raise your right hand. I state your name, please.
I, Kathleen Allison,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California.
I take this obligation freely,
I take this obligation freely,
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Thank you. Very good. You even added in the state of California where I left it out. So we once again want to give you A+ on delivery of your
Well, I've done those a couple times in my career, as well as I've administered oaths many times. So
I thought you might have some experience with that. And I'd really invite you now to say a few words at this point.
well, thank you very much. It's certainly my privilege and honor to be here, to be in this role as secretary for this agency at a very difficult time. You know, and many of you may or may not know, I retired. I was perfectly content in retirement when I got a phone call on a Friday afternoon from Mr. Diaz, who I thought was on the ledge of his office. He said, "Girl, I need your help." And I didn't hesitate. I said, "Absolutely, I'll come back." Never would I thought that all of this would have happened, and he subsequently chose to retire. And here I am. So, you know, I wasn't 100% sure I want to do this, but the powers that be at the Capitol convinced me otherwise. And so here I am, and I definitely look forward to working with you guys, being a member of the board, being engaged in this process to improve public safety in our communities. So thank you. I look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you. We're very happy to have you. Any other members of the board like to comment at this point? I see welcoming smiles from everybody, so we're going to go with that. Hand waves, very good. We didn't even instruct you on the hand wave for this purpose, but you're all impressive. Adam, will you please take the roll?
Chair Penner,
Present?
Miss Allison,
Present.
Mr. Vera Rosa,
I talked to him. He's trying. I
Is
told
he,
him I had to log off and log on a couple times.
is he in the queue there? I thought I saw him on the
I've
panel.
promoted him a couple of times to a panelist, but it looks like he's having trouble staying in. He
Okay.
might be having some technical difficulties. I'll reach out to him individually.
Thank you, Sean. And when he does get in, will you give us the heads up?
Of course.
All right. Go ahead, Adam.
all right, Mr. Groudon,
Here.
Mr. Gore,
Here.
and Miss Lore will be joining us at a later time. Mr. Seal,
Here.
Miss Zuniga,
Here.
Mr. Bronco,
Here.
Mr. Mills,
Present.
Mr. Budnick,
Here.
Mr. Steinhardt,
Here.
and Miss Kumpion.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Adam. The next item on the agenda are the chair's opening remarks, and I'm going to dispense of those today. I think you'll be hearing plenty from me. So I'm going to move on to item 3, which are information items that are substantial for this meeting. And I would invite Katie by beginning with the COVID-19 update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of the board, and thank you to everyone who's participating in this meeting today. We appreciate your presence. My name is Katie Howard. I'm the Executive Director here at the BSCC. I do want to mention for the benefit of our board members that you see Mary McComb here joining us by video. Mary is the State Public Defender, and she's here in connection with one of the agenda items and was interested and willing to join us right at the beginning and participate. Also, as an FYI, we will be joined by Chair Rachel Rios, who chairs the State Advisory Committee on Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention in connection with a different agenda item. So those are 2 of our special guests this morning. Thank you so much, Mary, for being here. Turning to the agenda items, here's the update on COVID-19. The data collection for our data dashboard has continued on a weekly basis since we launched that dashboard in mid-July. And as we move through today's agenda, I'd like to point out in a few different places the significant additional work that the BSCC has taken on to provide important and detailed information about the pandemic and what's happening inside county detention facilities across the state. I deeply appreciate the BSC staff as well as the local data reporters who are, as you can imagine, providing a whole lot of new information under difficult circumstances. And it's very beneficial to all of us here on the board, as well as to people across the state who are concerned about what's happening in detention facilities. Earlier this year, we began collecting additional information about population, as well as weekly updates on bookings and releases. Turning now to the COVID-19 numbers in the county jails and juvenile detention facilities, our team has provided me with some highlights of the trends over the recent weeks. And I'd like to start with the juvenile detention facility data. There are 22 counties who have had 0 positive tests reported since mid-July. There are 9 juvenile facilities that have had only 1 week of fewer than 11 positive tests reported. In Los Angeles County, the Barry J. Nydorf Juvenile Hall has had 0 positive tests since September 26th. Prior to that, they had positive tests in 4 weeks. LA Camp Rocky reported fewer than 11 positive tests for the week of October 15th. Those were the first time they had positives. And the LA Central Juvenile Hall has reported 0 positives for the first time since the data collection was started. In the Riverside Juvenile Facility, they've not had a positive test in the last 4 weeks. And San Diego County's Kearny Mesa Juvenile Facility has had fewer than 11 positive tests in 2 out of the last 4 reporting periods. And I would just urge anyone who's interested, board members, as well as those who are on the phone, to review the data that are available on our website. In terms of adult detention facility data, 15 counties have reported 0 positive tests since we began collecting the data. 5 counties have only 1 week of positive tests, and in some instances, there are confirmed cases on the rise. In Fresno County, there's been an increase in the number of confirmed cases over the past 6 weeks among incarcerated people and staff. The highest reported value was 21 positive cases in the week of October 25th. Lake County has had positive cases in the last 3 weeks, and Los Angeles County continues to have positive cases. Most are reporting fewer than 11 cases each week since October 4th. Orange County has had fewer positive cases in the last 4 weeks, although Theo Lacey continues to have positive results. San Bernardino has seen an increase in positive tests, and San Joaquin has also seen an increase since October 16th. In better news, confirmed cases have declined in Ventura County. Since the week of September 20th, Ventura County has reported fewer cases after they had high case counts in August 30th and through the first part of September. And now I'd like to take a moment to focus on Riverside County in particular. Our board has received numerous questions and has expressed concerns about Riverside County in our recent meetings. At the last board meeting, we had planned to be able to report back to you based on our in-person targeted inspection visit to Riverside. And I mention that because, as Deputy Director Allison Ganter will discuss in her update on the enhanced inspection process shortly, we received information in mid-October that the jail was concerned about a possible outbreak of COVID-19, and they requested that we delay the visit. In advance of today's board meeting, I asked our research team to take a closer look at all of the data Riverside County has reported to date. And those data show that the positivity rate for people in the jail is considerably lower than the positivity rate in the county as a whole. I'd like to ask our research chief, Casey Warmoth, to walk you through those numbers in a bit more detail. Casey?
Thank you, Katie. Give me one moment. I will pull up this presentation. And can everyone see a PowerPoint slide? Alrighty. Thank you, Katie. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. As Katie mentioned, I'll lead you through our deeper dive of the COVID-19 data reported by Riverside County Sheriff's Department through the BSCC's weekly survey to collect information about COVID-19 cases in local detention facilities. As you may recall, 2 data points collected through this survey are the number of tests conducted and number of confirmed positive tests. And these are collected weekly for each facility in a county. One aspect of the survey that impacts this deeper look is that values between 1 and 10 are reported as less than 11 for both the testing data and positive test data.
Okay,
This
no
was
worries
done
at all.
in
No rush at all.
line.
Okay, but thank you so much, Terry. Yeah, and then if you run through any.
Sorry about that. This was done in line with the public health de-identification guidelines. For our inquiry into the Riverside County's coronavirus cases in adult detention facilities, we focused on these 2 data points to look at the total number of tests conducted, total confirmed positive tests, and positivity rates. Due to the less than 11 figures, if a facility has reported less than 11 for any reporting week, it is not possible to calculate the true total number of tests or positive cases over time using this data set. And each Riverside facility has reported less than 11 at least once. To overcome this challenge, we estimated low and high totals for each data point. The low estimate was calculated by replacing the less than 11 figures with a value of 1. The high estimate was calculated by replacing these less than 11 figures with a value of 10. These replacements allowed us to estimate the range of possible total tests conducted and total positive tests. We recognize that these are estimates and the actual value is somewhere in between. We also obtained county-wide data to see if the positivity rate in and across county facilities were similar to that of the county as a whole. So let's take a look at the COVID data received from Riverside County. This table summarizes our findings for each of the 5 facilities in the county, with the final row of the table representing the county as a whole, or the facilities across the county. The table represents cumulative estimated totals for the data collected since July 19th through November 14th, this last Saturday. The first column identifies the facility. The second column provides the average daily population. This value is not an estimate. The next 2 columns provide the low and high estimate for the total number of tests conducted. And the last 2 columns provide the low and high estimate for the total positive tests. What we found is that each jail has been conducting a high number of tests. Tracking tests over time, each facility has been testing approximately 50% or more of its population each week since August 16th. In all, since July 19th, we estimate over 15,000 COVID tests in Riverside detention facilities have been done. We estimate the total number of positive tests in the facilities to range from 273 to 471, with the Larry D. Smith Correctional Facility, followed by the Robert Presley Detention Center with the higher number of positive tests. This is followed by the Southwest Detention Center and then the Blythe Jail. The Indio Jail has reported no positive tests. This table adds 2 new columns, the final 2 on the right-hand side. These provide the estimated low and high positivity rate by jail and across the facilities in the county. The Larry D. Smith facility has the highest estimated positivity rate, ranging from 4 to 5.3%. This is followed by the Blythe Jail with an estimated positivity rate ranging from less than 1% to 5.6%. It's important to note the impact of the total number of tests on the positivity rate. Blythe Jail has conducted fewer tests in comparison to its population than the other facilities. Overall, across the facilities, we estimate the positivity rate to be between 1.75 and 3%. While a single case in a detention facility is certainly not desired or ideal, We were interested in knowing how the rates compare to Riverside County as a whole. So let's take a look at that. Oops, sorry. This slide adds an additional table that reports for the county as a whole, the total number of tests conducted, confirmed cases, and positivity rate. It's important to note that these countywide data are from the beginning of the pandemic forward, likely since March, while the BSCC data are from July 19th forward. Also, the county data should include those cases within the county detention facilities. Riverside County currently has an 8% positivity rate across the county as a whole. In comparison, we found that each adult detention facility within the county has a positivity rate lower than the county. Our takeaway from this deeper look into Riverside's reported data is that in comparison to the county as a whole, there does not appear to be a large outbreak in the county's adult detention facilities. And Katie, this concludes my presentation. I'm happy to stay for any questions or stop sharing as you direct.
Please do stand by. If I could, board members, I'd like to share a few additional pieces of information, and then we'll wrap up the COVID-19 update and be happy to take questions at that time. There's just been a lot of news and information coming out of Riverside County. Earlier this week, we provided a public comment to board members focusing on concerns in the Riverside County Jail. And I'd at this moment like to ask Erin McGuire, our general counsel, to provide a couple of updates that came out this week on legal actions connected to the Riverside Jail. Erin?
Yeah, some of these, some of these things didn't necessarily happen this week, but they're sort of ongoing status of what the legal situation is in the County of Riverside. 2 days ago, there was a news article that was published that Cal OSHA actually was looking at things that were going on in the sheriff's department. They issued some fines against Riverside County, which they are contesting and appealing, but they deal with failure to train employees, failure to maintain written infection protocols, and failure to maintain some other things. That was for activities that occurred between mid-April and also up to November 11th. I also wanted just to point out that there's been ongoing active litigation in the County of Riverside as well. The prison law office has filed a class action many years ago, and they recently went to court regarding COVID concerns within the Riverside County Jail. They obtained an order in July which was implementing certain things related to COVID. The court order does require that all admissions will be tested for COVID, that cloth masks will be issued, 2 cloth masks will be issued, instructions on how to use that the common areas will be cleaned and disinfected 3 times a day, and that inmates are required to eat in their bunks. And those requirements are being monitored by the federal court at this time, and there'll be status updates and checks by the court that will be done virtually. So that's sort of the state of other legal and enforcement actions that have taken place in the County of Riverside.
Thank you very much, Erin. Just one other thing to add, and then just by way of logistics, we'll take questions from the board at this point, and then we'd like to move through the other information items and then open the queue for public comments. So the additional piece of information I wanted to bring to the board is that now that we are in the new biennial inspection cycle of all the local facilities, and as we have reported to the board, we will be asking all sheriffs and chief probation officers to provide to us their current policies and procedures connected to the regulation on the management of communicable diseases. We've talked about this in prior board meetings and have provided information out to the field about those regulations. And we are now going to take the step of requesting all those policies and procedures and seeing what what is there. So when the board meets next in February, we will have additional information to report about what we've seen from a review of the policies and procedures across the state. And this concludes our update on COVID-19, and we're happy to take any questions, comments from the board. Any questions?
Okay. Seeing none, Katie, you want to then move to your executive director report?
Happy to, Chair Penner. Thank you so much.
Chair Feder,
Yes.
I had a hand up. I couldn't.
Oh, sorry, Artie. Chief Mills, go ahead.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, last time there were some comments that a couple of sheriff's offices were not collaborating with the BSCC. Are we getting broad collaboration now for the staff members who are trying to evaluate the level of COVID in these facilities?
Chair Penner?
Oh, I think we need to ask research.
Do you mean on the data collection, Chief Mills?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay, okay. Yes, yeah, Casey. I believe.
Yes, we're getting
Mhm.
yes, we're getting broad participation in the survey. We do have some data reporter fatigue, where we do have some delays in data reports, and they kind of wait later in the week. So we do appreciate all of their efforts. I think there were just 2 adult counties that decided not to report. Other than that, we are getting reports with just a few delays from a few counties.
Okay, terrific. All right, back to the executive director report. I wanted to start by highlighting for the board that last week we had a virtual listening session for our State Advisory Committee on Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, having a hard time with that word today. So we provided an opportunity for anyone who's interested to come and offer their comments, suggestions, and questions to assist in the development of the next 3-year plan for Title II in California, which is one of the key responsibilities for that State Advisory Committee. And it really was a terrific listening session. One of the many things that we've had to adopt and adapt in the COVID situation is to have listening sessions taking place virtually. We didn't quite know what to expect, but Ricardo Goodridge and the team and I were very pleased with the level of engagement, good ideas, back and forth interaction between committee members and engaged members of the community with very helpful input into that 3-year plan development. And so I wanted to mention, in addition, that we will be scheduling a listening session. I think we've landed on the date of December 9th to focus on our enhanced inspection process. And as we've talked about in several board meetings during the 2020 year, when the governor directed us back in January to come up with an enhanced inspection process, and we did so. We had a plan that we'd have an opportunity at in-person meetings to provide for this board and for the interested public a great deal more information about how we conduct inspections, what goes into it, and how it was to be enhanced. We haven't been able to do quite all of that, certainly not in person because of the pandemic. But Deputy Director Allison Ganter and our Communications Director Tracy Cohn and I have been talking in depth about the importance of providing more information, certainly on our website and through listening sessions, so that it is clear to anyone who's interested. We're well aware of the wide interest in the BSCC's responsibilities, particularly connected to inspections. So we want to have a listening session that will provide an overview of how we do our inspections, explain what we're doing differently in the enhanced inspection process, answer questions, and take suggestions from people who may be interested in that. We want to have more and better information on our website, and we're committed to doing that as well. Turning to yet another data collection effort, Casey Wormuth and the research team are now seeking public comments on an addition to the jail profile survey. This week we started a comment period because we're now planning to collect late night release information to the JPS. So written comments can be submitted through December the 11th, and we have a virtual listening session scheduled for Thursday, December 3rd. There's more information available on our website about those planned changes to the jail profile survey. Now moving from the report on the virtual world to the actual in-person world, I'd like to spend a little time to tell you about the visit that board member Norma Kumpion and Deputy Director Allison Ganter and Field Representative Kim Mowell and I had on Monday of this week. We traveled to San Diego and visited the Las Colinas detention facility in East County. So I want to thank Sheriff Gore in particular and his team at Las Colinas, who spent a big chunk of their day walking the facility and answering our questions. Board member Kumpion had requested to participate on an inspection, and we were able to walk her through a sample day of what goes into it, the prep work as well as the on-site inspection portion. We reviewed the checklist that our field representatives use. We reviewed the kinds of documents that we request. We talked about how the pre-inspection briefing is conducted. And then on site at Las Colinas, we met with the custody, medical, and programming staff. We had a briefing about how they are screening people for COVID-19 at booking. We walked through a variety of the housing units, and we had the opportunity to talk with several women in their dormitory. For me, I thought it was an absolutely great day. It was also exhausting. And I particularly want to thank Kim Mowell for her excellent briefing and really answering all the questions that Norma had about how we do the inspections. Norma, would you like to add any comments here?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for that. You covered a lot of our day, especially the exhausting part. I haven't worn shoes in a while, so there was a lot of walking. I forgot what those feel like. Yes, so the county jail, I appreciate being able to see what an inspection entails and to be able to go into the jail and hear from some of the women who were there about some of the programming that they have. And it seems that there's a lot of programming there, and there's a lot of work that goes into the inspections. Mm-hmm. A couple points that I can think of, though, I think we kind of talked about it a little bit about the inspections, that it does feel like that it's former law enforcement who are the field inspectors overseeing law enforcement. And so I understand that there's like a language there that a lot of people who are outside of law enforcement may not understand, but I also think that that's one of those systems that there's been a lot of talk about in this country and in the state about these systems that are kind of like set up a certain way. And so, you know, I know that's nothing that's something that's been written, you know, into the BSCC, but I think it's also something to kind of start thinking about, like who is doing the inspections and who, if there's an opportunity for people who are not law enforcement or former law enforcement to also go in and to participate in some of the inspections. So I think it's something also to think about. But it was great. And I really appreciate being able to be literally boots on the ground. And I appreciate being able to go in, and Allison and Katie are amazing travel partners. So I appreciate that. And I would be really honored to be able to go to more. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Norma. Thank you as well. I really just want to end here, Chair Benner, with yet another statement of gratitude and appreciation for the incredible work our entire BSCC team has been doing. We're all affected by the pandemic in small ways and large, in our professional life as well as our personal life. And people continue to just, you know, get a tremendous amount of work done. The commitment and the tenacity and the dedication of our team is truly amazing to me. And I appreciate all of that. And I wanted to share that with the board.
Thank you, Katie. I share your sentiments exactly, and I appreciate all that they do. One might think we weren't as busy and active during a pandemic when we're all working remotely. It seems to me to be almost the opposite. It is lots and lots to do. I now move to the legal update. Aaron, looking for you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I actually do have a legal update, which was on Friday, the U.S. Department of Justice filed a petition for cert with the United States Supreme Court regarding what's known as our Burn Jag litigation. And I just sort of realized that that involves litigation that started in 2017 involving our JAG grants, and many of our board members may not actually be familiar with the state of that litigation. So I'll do a very brief summary, which was back in 2017, the U.S. Department of Justice added some notification and access conditions as part of our Burn Jag money, requiring that recipients of that money cooperate with ICE in order to draw down those funds. The state of California sued the United States government about those conditions, arguing that they were unconstitutional and should not be attached to our JAG conditions. The state of California prevailed in that litigation. It's been appealed to the Ninth Circuit. We won in the Ninth Circuit. It went to and now the United States government has petitioned for cert with the United States Supreme Court. So the state of California does have to respond in a certain period of time. And there's also a circuit split with this case with the Second Circuit in New York. So there is a chance that the United States Supreme Court will grant cert in this case. But we also sort of expect that this litigation to go a different path as soon as there's a new administration at the federal government. So that's sort of the only update I have for this issue at this time. The other update, of course, that I do at every meeting is to ask and request that all board members take a look at the grants that we are going to be talking about, some of which are being awarded today, some of which we're just putting out in the field for people to respond to. But I wanted to flag a couple of those things that at least I looked at, but I ask you to look at those as well. We are making awards on the Indigent Defense Grant. Merced County is specifically being awarded a grant. Actually, I don't think Supervisor Lohr is here yet. But as well, Lassen County is also getting a grant for that for Sheriff Groudon. We're also putting the Prop 64 grant back into the field for comment. I know Sheriff Groudon, you were looking at that as to whether or not your county would be newly eligible. And just as an update, and I know Helene Zentner is going to cover this as well, but the law changed right at the end of session so that counties that the requirement was that counties had to allow outdoor cultivation in order to be eligible for this grant. They switched that, so outdoor cultivation is not required, which means a lot more counties are eligible, particularly County of Los Angeles, City and County of San Francisco are newly eligible for this grant. So again, Chief Mills, the County of Santa Cruz was eligible. I believe the city banned cultivation, but the city may now be newly eligible. So you may want to consider recusing yourself when we get to that item. Likewise, Chief Seal, I think the County of Sacramento banned outdoor cultivation, but they may allow indoor. And I know the city of Sacramento showed up at a bidders conference when this first went around. So again, just something to keep in mind. The ARG grant, our board members who work for the Anti-Racism Coalition may want to recuse on that grant. And then finally, two more, the CESF grant. I think that's going to get very complicated when we get to that one. That is a broad county grant that's going to all counties. So all our county partners, county board members may want to recuse themselves on that grant. If we lose our quorum, we may have to do drawing of lots when we get to that grant, which is, I know everyone likes that process, but we'll deal with that when we get to that. And then finally, item J, the SB 823, it's very preliminary, but I would still sort of recommend at this point that Chief Zeal and Chief Zuniga recuse when we get to that discussion item as well. So I just wanted to flag those in advance. Please announce if you want to recuse yourselves as you look those items over when we get to them. And with that, Madam Chair, I turn that back over to you.
Thank you very much. Adam, and I'm going to move on to the FSO inspections in just a minute, but I'm having a little angst over what I think will be a very interesting public comment period after the discussion items, and worried that we could lose a quorum before we get to the action items. So I'm going to have to think about how we're going to handle that. So Aaron, if you would put your thinking cap on as Allison does a report. I hate to defer public comment, but I'm concerned, understanding there'll be a great deal of public comment at this juncture.
Madam Chair, if I may ask, just to help us make that decision, if Adam could please advise how many people have asked to make public comment on info items? What's the number?
Oh, we currently have 10.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Allison.
Whoops. Give me 1 second to get set up. Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and board members and attendees. I'm Allison Ganter. I'm Deputy Director of the Facility Standards and Operations Division, and I'll be providing the board with an update on activities on the BSCC's enhanced inspection process that have occurred since the September 2020 meeting, which was only 2 months ago, but feels like an awfully long time ago. It's my hope that this brief update will give you all a sense of the regular updates that we'll be sharing with the board in the future. In accordance with the governor's direction to provide strengthened oversight to local detention facilities, BSCC staff will be providing regular updates on the status of agencies' non-compliance, items of non-compliance, and where they are in a corrective action plan. And as a reminder, we're fairly early in this process during a pandemic, and fine-tuning our tracking and documentation for this process. At future meetings, you'll be receiving updates with accompanying documentation. Just wanted to have everybody keep that in mind. The FSO team, our field representatives, are in regular communication, and we continue to provide active technical assistance to local detention facilities throughout this time. We do look forward to providing regular on-site inspections. We are committed to ensuring compliance with minimum standards and ensuring that facilities are operating safely. So as we discussed at the September meeting, field representatives are currently conducting targeted inspections. We're focusing on those agencies where there were a significant number of items of non-compliance in the previous inspection cycle, the 18-20 inspection cycle, and where significant items of non-compliance continue to be evident. And you'll recall that there were 10 agencies on the original non-compliance and selection for targeted inspection list. There have been some shifts in those counties as we've cleaned up some of our data. So in accordance with Department of Public Health guidelines for BSCC inspectors, we have begun to conduct site visits to those counties. And I'll give you a quick update on those original 10 agencies. We have visited 3 of the 10 counties on that original targeted inspection list, and that was Trinity County, Mono County, and Modoc County. And a quick side note, Modoc wasn't originally on the list. After we updated our information after the September board meeting, Solano County fell off of that list since their items had been corrected, and Modoc was added. So 3 visits have been conducted. 2 are scheduled for the next couple of weeks in early December. San Francisco, their site visit will be happening, their targeted inspection. And as Director Howard mentioned, we will be visiting Riverside County, which had been originally scheduled for October, but was postponed due to COVID. We will be visiting there in the second week of December. So in addition to those 5 visits that have occurred or are scheduled. We're providing active technical assistance to, and we're in regular communication with Imperial County and Los Angeles County. Both of those agencies are working through items of non-compliance. In Los Angeles, many of the items of non-compliance were related to policies and procedures. They are working through their internal processes to update. They are subject to consent decrees, so they do have layers to get through to get policy and procedures updated. And in Imperial, they are having some technical mechanical issues with one of their systems with safety checks. They're working through that issue as well. So that leaves 3 targeted inspections that will be scheduled as soon as possible. That will be Santa Cruz, Sutter County, and the Madera Department of Corrections. So quick reminder about the enhanced inspection process and what it entails, beginning with this, the current biennial inspection cycle. It's the 2022 cycle. According to the enhanced inspection process, when field representatives conduct an inspection, whether it's targeted or the biennial inspection, the field representatives will be providing facility administrators with an initial inspection report at the close of the on-site inspection, which is typically during the exit briefing. And that initial inspection report will identify outstanding items of non-compliance, which will start a clock for those agencies to begin addressing those items. And upon receipt of that initial inspection report, agencies will have 30 days to either correct those outstanding items of non-compliance or submit a corrective action plan, which will outline how and when those items will be addressed. So staff will provide regular updates on agencies that are past that initial 30 days beyond the issuance of that initial inspection report. We'll provide context behind remaining outstanding items of non-compliance, reviewing levels of significance with board members, and we will recommend whether or not board members should request that a sheriff or a chief probation officer appear before the board. And in general, as we move through this process, typically agencies that fail to submit a corrective action plan, or they fail to correct items of non-compliance within 60 days of that initial inspection report, those agencies may be requested to appear before the board at the next scheduled meeting. So as I mentioned, just for context and how these updates will look, I mentioned we completed 3 inspections in Trinity, Mono, and Modoc County. We are still in the initial 30 days of inspection of each of these agencies. So they are all currently working through the items of non-compliance, and I will provide a status update on those agencies at the next meeting. And Mono County has corrected all of their outstanding items already. We are awaiting both Trinity and Modoc's eventual evidence of correction or a corrective action plan. They're both due in December. We do anticipate that in Trinity, the remaining items related to non-compliance may not be corrected immediately because they are due to the need for the agency to hire staff and also completing new construction to be in compliance. They have corrected all items of non-compliance that they were able to, so I will present that information at our next meeting. Again, we'll continue to provide status of each targeted inspection as we move through them at the next board meeting. And include whether or not the agency has been able to correct those items of non-compliance or where they are at in the corrective action plan in the meantime. We will highlight where items of non-compliance are significant. We'll go over what those look like with the board. We'll seek input from board members on the significance of those items. And again, we'll provide our recommendation to board members on whether or not the sheriff or the chief should be requested to appear before the board. In addition, as mentioned earlier, we will be holding a listening session in December to receive additional public comment and stakeholder feedback about the enhanced inspection process. I'm hoping that very shortly we'll be able to put information on our on our website about the Zoom session and how individuals can submit written comment. In the meantime, regulations at bscc.ca.gov is a good email address to submit public comments. Happy to take any questions that board members may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Any questions from the
Real quickie question. So Allison, I asked this in a prior meeting. The initial inspection reports are posted, are they not, for public view on the BSCC website?
They have, so we're working out the details. That's a great question. Since we have just completed those inspections and we're finalizing the information, we will figure out where they will be posted in the near future. We'll make that information available to you all. But they haven't been posted yet.
Okay. Anything else from a board member? Okay, we're going to move now to public comment. But before we do that, my apologies to Guillermo. I see he pops on and off. There's some technical difficulty that keeps knocking him off. He's been very, very patient. And Sean, I don't know if you can help him at all or if the difficulty.
Yeah, I've been working with him constantly through this. He's engaged his IT department. There's something going on their side and they're working with him individually on it.
Okay, well, appreciation to him for being so patient. We're going to now move to the public comment section. I am told there are 11 people in the queue, and we will now close the queue. So no names to be added, please. Beyond that, I would ask members of the public who are going to comment, in the interest of time and holding on to a quorum, which we very much need in this meeting, to please, 2 minutes is not, in fact, how long you need to go. I would ask you to make your comments as brief as you can. And if in fact you are simply supporting what another individual has said, I would ask you to lend your support to the item and not restate the entire issue. Because certainly it will all be noted and your support of another individual's comments will be noted. So we'll proceed now. Adam, you've closed the queue and we'll begin public comment.
Okay, Madam Chair, we have Terry Filman.
Are you out there, Terry?
Terry, you can unmute yourself now. If you're on the phone, that should be *6.
Okay, we'll come back to Terry if that works for the body. And next in line?
We have Tumani Drew.
Hello. I would like to ask, why are there months of inspection data missing for the San Francisco facility? Why are delays acceptable? Why are you hiding the fact that these jails are killing our folks by not giving them proper care? What are you doing to release our folks to reduce COVID cases and ensure their safety and health? Our incarcerated folks are suffering in poor living conditions, and it's your responsibility to establish regulations and enforce them. We are here to demand that you revise your COVID guidelines for both adult and juvenile facilities and for your folks. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam?
We have Courtney Morris.
Hi, my name is Courtney Morris. I wanted to thank Andy Mills for posing the question of where the COVID data is for all of the jails. I know that Casey Wormuth said just a few were missing and there is a bit of data submission fatigue. I'd like to point out there's data missing for Amador County, Marsh Creek's not included for Contra Costa, Humboldt, Madera, Merced, South Placer Jail, Plumas. There's never been any data for Sacramento. We all saw the blow up at Folsom State Prison. Lee Seal, where is the data for Sacramento historically? And the list goes on and on. And so I ask as well, what are the consequences? These are not tired students who can't submit their homework. This is a requirement. What are you doing about it? I also haven't seen Kathleen Allison since a clip in Belly of the Beast about the illegal sterilization of women in women's prisons. Kathleen Allison, there has been 1,500 cases since you've taken office. We demand releases, not transfers, releases, not transfers, releases, not transfers.
Thank you. And I would remind the body that this portion of the agenda is saved and required that you comment only on issues that came before the board on the informational section. And next in line, please.
We have Michelle Strove. I can't say her last name. Strove, F-A-C-I-S-T-R-O-F-A-C-I. Michelle.
Are you out there, Michelle? There you go.
Can you repeat the name?
Is it Michelle Strofasi?
Not me.
Okay.
Let's move on to Avalon Edwards.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Avalon Edwards, and I'm a policy fellow with Starting Over, Inc. Since the onset of COVID-19, dozens of individuals inside Riverside County jails and their loved ones outside have shared with us about the horrifying conditions inside the county jails. They have cited overcrowding, the absence of cleaning supplies, limited mask distribution, and 23-hour-a-day lockdowns. It is extremely concerning that this board is apparently solely relying on information provided by the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, which has a history of not meeting the BSCC's established minimum standards. Sheriff Bianco has also openly stated his indifference towards the lives of people in his custody, saying that if people don't want to get COVID, they should simply not commit crimes. And as mentioned earlier, the department was fined this week for its failure to adequately protect deputies from COVID-19. Trusting the accuracy of the data reported by this department is frankly irresponsible. It is imperative that the BSCC inspections team speak directly with people inside these facilities and their loved ones to understand the actual current conditions. While the Sheriff's Department has downplayed the risk of COVID-19 in Riverside jails since March, people in their custody have repeatedly said differently. Quote, "The beds are maybe in arm's reach from each other. They are just way past social distancing," end quote. Quote, "They don't even give us bars of soap. They gave us maybe, for 25 people, they gave us 3 bars," end quote. Quote, "It's basically a death sentence waiting to happen," end quote. I am struck by the fact that the planned Riverside inspection was postponed because the Sheriff's Department requested that it not happen. What kind of oversight does the BSCC provide if it agrees not to inspect a facility simply because a sheriff asks them not to? Since March, 2 people awaiting trial in Riverside custody have died of COVID-19, and the Riverside University Health System reports that over 490 others behind bars have tested positive. 2 deputies have died of COVID-19. What oversight has this agency provided in that time? The department will have had an abundance of time to cover up any items of noncompliance by the time the inspections team visits the facilities in the next few weeks. It is abundantly clear that the BSCC's current lax inspections process does not protect our community members behind bars. It is imperative that the BSCC agree to revise its current inspections process with direct input from those who have been impacted by the inhumane jail conditions in our state. Thank you.
Thank you, Avalon.
And we have Dominique Mong.
Good morning, Dominique Mong from the Children's Defense Fund, California. As stated, the purpose of developing an enhanced inspections process, EIP, is to strengthen the state's oversight of jails. Oversight necessary to protect the dignity and well-being of incarcerated individuals and facility staff. The quality of oversight is only as good as the quality of the inspections conducted to identify all areas of noncompliance. Currently, the approved EIP only affects reporting of inspections rather than any changes to the facility inspection itself. We are heartened to hear that the staff has demonstrated a desire to now move forward on examining how facility inspections can be approved. And we appreciate the scheduled December 9th listening session and hope that this and any others will be designed to maximize the ability of community members to participate. These processes should include the following: sufficient notice, ideally 3 weeks of listening sessions through various mediums such as email and social media, scheduled times that accommodate the working and parental schedules of the public. Community members have suggested evening hours such as 6 to 8 p.m. on more than one day, and more flexible limits on public comment length. Given the importance of this issue, we also ask that the BSCC put the enhanced inspections process on the formal agenda of its next meeting and direct the staff to present a proposal to expand the enhanced inspections process to include improvements to facility inspection procedures at that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have James Martinez.
Good morning, BSCC board. My name is James Martinez. I'm a Sacramento State University student and a policy programs assistant with MILPA. Being system impacted, I've experienced the inhumane conditions that continues to permeate within detention facilities that BSCC oversees and inspects. For years, advocates have showed up in this space with concerns that seem to fall on deaf ears. Today, we need BSCC to take action and revise COVID-19 guidelines for local adult and juvenile facilities. The time is now for BSCC to acknowledge the concerns of advocates who are here to ensure impacted communities are protected in local correctional facilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we have Renee Menard.
Good morning, Renee Menard with the Center on Juvenile and Criminal Justice. I would like to speak briefly about the need for the BSCC to take additional steps in revising its facility inspections. Last November, the Sacramento Bee and ProPublica reported on BSCC's failure to address neglect inside local detention centers. It has been a year since we learned about horrendous conditions affecting incarcerated folks in facilities under the BSCC's watch. Since then, the BSCC has made minimal revisions to its process of reporting following facility inspections, termed the enhanced inspections process, without any formal changes to the inspections themselves. I appreciate that the BSCC plans to hold a community meeting next month. It is critical that community input is not only heard, but seriously considered. With that, I ask that the BSCC board commit to reserving an agenda item at the next board meeting so its members can hear a report out on community input and suggestions. The BSCC must then take additional steps to revise its facility inspections and ensure the basic safety of people under its care. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Israel Villa.
Good morning, muy buenos días. Israel Villa, Deputy Director with the California Alliance for Youth and Community Justice. I and many urge you to develop a more effective inspections process inclusive of community members, community-based organizations, and directly impacted people. There should be community listening sessions, and we do thank you and acknowledge the listening session on December 9th. Hopefully there's more. In order to get community input and ensure proper inspections, and most importantly, the necessary transparency and accountability, which has been absent for too long. The public comment at the listening sessions should be more than 2 minutes, as was already stressed. Should be human-centered and not limited to 2 minutes, as we are talking about real people, real stories, and real concerns. And frankly, it is very challenging to express and address one's concern in a mere 2 minutes. I also ask that this item be agendized so the board can address this properly. Lastly, inspections should be unannounced, because I remember every time such inspections or other important visitors and or tours came to our juvenile hall in Monterey County, they gave us each a Snickers and a soda so we would behave and or not act up. Some of us were never allowed to speak to any visitors for fear of speaking our truths. These same payoffs are happening today. I know this from working with folks and trying to help these youngsters out. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have Sarah Gaston.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Michael Gasson, and I'm with Youth Forward in Sacramento. We are dedicated to creating smart solutions to improve the health, education, and well-being of our most vulnerable children and youth in California. BSCC's COVID-19 data dashboard is limited to weekly reports with no cumulative totals over time or statewide totals maintained by the BSCC. We are concerned that after publicly stating it would do so, the BSCC has decided against reporting critical information with one-time cumulative COVID-19 facility data. We ask the BSCC to flag upticks and positive cases for the public. Otherwise, members of the public must weed through lengthy data on their own at the expense of people's health and safety inside local facilities. We ask that you do more to ensure the safety and health of those that are incarcerated. And I thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you.
We have Brian Goldstein.
Good morning, Brian Goldstein with the Center on Juvenile and Criminal Justice. Since the start of the pandemic, we've been very concerned for the safety of those inside California's jails and juvenile facilities. For months, we've asked BSCC to strengthen oversight and inspections. The BSCC must revise their COVID-19 guidelines for testing in local adult and juvenile facilities. It is clear Some counties still are not testing for COVID-19. It is clear some counties are testing very little for COVID-19. The BSCC's COVID-19 data collection still falls short of what we need. As has already been mentioned, one of the counties that isn't reporting any data to the BSCC is Sacramento County. And just as a reminder to everybody, as of November 7th, there are over 3,200 people in Sacramento County jails. We continue to ask BSCC to protect those in these local facilities by mandating testing and reporting. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if we could go back to Terry Philman and Michelle, are you guys online?
Okay, I'm sorry if you're out there and you can't reach us.
Excuse me, sorry.
Yes.
I am in touch with Michelle and she, I think, just got dropped off the call. Would she be able to join general public comment at the end?
Sure, that'd be great. Great idea, Avalon. Thank you. And let me say this, I appreciate all the remarks today, and we always note the remarks and I think try to be as responsive as possible. I appreciate people being brief and poignant, and that is helpful to the board to hear those remarks. I now go back to the board and ask if there's any comments on the comments. Chief Seal?
Thank you. I'd just like to respond to a couple of comments from the public. I do appreciate all the comments, and I agree that we need to be robust and strong in our measures that we're taking. COVID-19 obviously is not going away; it's getting worse, and our efforts need to match that. There were a couple of references to Sacramento, so I'd like to clarify where we are as a county. Our probation department has complied with the BSCC at all times in reporting data, and we continue to. In addition to that, we also post further information updated on a weekly basis on our website. So we're very committed to that. We test all of our intakes coming into our juvenile hall. We're really proud of the fact that there's been no community transmission inside our juvenile hall. I take that very seriously, and I'm proud of the work we do, committed to full transparency. I have spoken personally to our sheriff and conveyed the desire of the board to see public reporting on behalf of the sheriff's department as well. In response, he explained to me his desire to provide that information, but to do so in what he considers to be a fuller context on his own website. And I've checked over there just moments ago, and I do see that he has updated data that is on his website as of yesterday. So while it's not in compliance with what we would like to see with the BSCC in terms of reporting, I will note that data is publicly available, updated on his website as he's indicated.
Thank you, Chief Seal. And I'd like to add to that, and I don't defend anybody who's not reporting, and I'm not particularly moved by reporter fatigue. I think we all have a certain amount of fatigue. I can commit that the BSCC will follow up on lack of reporting when we see it missing from our website. But from the inception, Sacramento, and I believe, what was the other county that we're not going to provide the information, and we're not going to cooperate with the data collection. And we required counties to cooperate because we have no way to force them to do that. And while it's disappointing that 2 counties are not participating, it is encouraging that so many are doing it voluntarily. And I thought I saw your hand up, Scott.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. You say that we can't force anybody to report. Why should a county who refuses to report coronavirus data that is killing people, especially inside jails and prisons, why should they be able to apply for money from the BSCC?
Well, I suspect there's a legal reason as to that. If it's a voluntary reporting, I'm not sure how we would proceed on that. It's an interesting and provocative question, and I'm tempted to put Aaron on the spot at this juncture, but I think I'll refrain from doing that. I think it's something you suggest and we probably should take a deeper dive into.
Secondly, I was definitely concerned hearing the stories of Riverside and some of the comments made by the sheriff. I wonder, the one fact that we canceled an inspection because they said they don't want us to inspect. What is the story there?
Okay, I think I can shed some light on that. They noted that they were having an outbreak, and I think we canceled based on their suggestion because of that. I can tell you the inspection is scheduled for the second week in December, and it's my intention to go do the inspection with Allison Ganter, who runs the unit that does those. We are concerned. That's why we moved forward with the voluntary data we shared with you today. The board has expressed an interest in Riverside County over the last 3 meetings. Conservatively, it could be even 4. And I'm very concerned that we haven't been in there. So I accept your challenge, and so much so that I intend to go and spend time in there and do the inspection with Allison.
Great. One last additional question. I want to thank Chief Seal for his comments. I've been in his juvenile hall multiple times, and he's opened his doors on moment's notice to me and other folks who were system impacted, even folks that were still on parole and probation, but have been doing really, really well in the community. So I really have always appreciated his transparency. But I'm also really concerned that the Sacramento sheriff doesn't seem to follow his lead. Other than Sacramento, what are the other counties that have decided not to comply with the BSCC?
There was only one other.
Chair Penner, if I could provide an update. Casey provided the information. There are 3, so we were mistaken in saying 2. It's Sacramento, Amador, and Tehama counties. So two very small counties, and then Sacramento.
And with Amador and Tehama, is it the probation department and the sheriff, or just the sheriff?
Those are the sheriffs, Scott.
Great.
I'm not sure off the top of my head whether the smaller counties even have detention facilities, but our research team can help me out on that, and I can provide an update when I have it.
Don't know why those sheriff's departments should be able to apply for funding from the BSCC. And if I was on an executive steering committee, as well as many of the people listening, as well as the people on this board, and those sheriffs were applying, I would be very dubious.
Thank you. Helpful. Anyone else on the board? Okay, we're going to move now to our consent agenda, and that agenda consists of 3 items, A, B, and C. Interestingly enough, following right in order. Minutes of the September 10th, 2020 board meeting. I assume people have read and reviewed those, followed by Assembly Bill 1196, the Peace Officers' Use of Force. That's been on our agenda on other occasions. We're asking for consent on that item. And finally, the Proud Parenting Grant Program. I'd ask for any comments on board members on any of these consent items, if they wish them to be pulled, or they can move forward with the consent agenda.
Just a question, Madam Chair.
Uh-huh.
So I had submitted corrections, which Aaron said could be made in advance to the minutes regarding the mistakes in the summary of Senate Bill 823, the executive report. Mm-hmm. So Are the minutes now being approved, the corrected ones? Somebody maybe could answer that.
I'm getting a nod from Katie.
Yeah, I saw the nod from Adam. So Adam, that's correct, right? The minutes have been corrected.
To reflect David's input. Thank you. It was
Thank you. That's all.
clarifying corrections. Thank you, David.
Any further board input on consent agenda items? Looking now to see if anyone in the public has any input on consent agenda items.
We have none in the queue, Chair Penner.
With that, I would request a first and a second motion.
So moved, Groudon.
Can I get a second?
Second, Gordon Baranco.
Okay, all in favor of approving items on the consent agenda, please say aye. Oh, I have to poll, huh? I apologize. Adam, poll the body. Pardon me. I thought I was in person. I've been on Zoom so long.
Chair Penner,
Aye.
Ms. Allison,
Aye.
Mr. Vera Rosa, has he joined back? I don't think he has joined back. No.
He's been on and off throughout the morning. He's having connectivity issues.
He's still struggling with his IT unit.
Mr. Groudon,
Aye.
Mr. Gore, Mr. Seal,
Aye.
Ms. Zuniga,
Aye.
Mr. Bronco,
Aye.
Mr. Mills,
Aye.
Mr. Budnick,
Aye.
Mr. Steinhardt,
Aye.
Ms. Kumpion.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion carries.
Thank you. Just another reminder to the public, if you are seeing an item on the next portion of the agenda you wish to comment on, please follow Adam's instructions on how to move your comment card forward. And I would now move to the discussion portion of our agenda. I think are we taking a few of these out of order, Katie?
Yes, Chair Penner, if I could make a recommendation, please. I did have a text update from Rachel Rios, our chair from SACJAB. She's not able to join us. She's had a time-sensitive issue come up in her morning, so she couldn't come on for this call. I'd like to ask if we could take the agenda item on the indigent defense grant so that we can let Mary McComb go after that. So Adam, can you just help out directing people to the right item F, it looks like.
Did we lose Mary?
No, I'm here.
Here you are. We told her she was going to have to stay for the whole meeting, but we're being kind. So there you go.
And before we begin this item, Madam Chair, I did want to check Supervisor Lohr has not shown up. I just want to double check that. And then I just wanted to, Sheriff Groudon, you don't have to recuse yourself from this item, but if you this money is proposed to go to the Lassen County Public Defender, if you'd like to recuse, you may do so.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and recuse.
All right, go ahead and mute and turn off your camera and we can go from there.
We know where to find you, Sheriff Groudon.
Thank you.
Okay. Item F, is that Ricardo?
It is, Madam Chair.
There you go, Ricardo. Please take the lead.
Happy to. Again, good morning, Madam Chair and board members. My name is Ricardo Goodridge with the Corrections, Planning, and Grants Programs Division, presenting Agenda Item F. Joining me today is State Public Defender Mary McComb to help address any questions that you may have. This agenda item requests board approval to allocate $10 million in state funding to county public defender offices for indigent defense grants and for the BSCC to contract for an evaluation. The State Budget Act of 2020 appropriated $9.8 million to support grants to eligible county public defender offices for indigent defense services. The State Public Defender's Office has identified 19 counties with populations of 550,000 residents or fewer that would benefit from this funding opportunity. These counties were identified in part due to their limited public defense budgets relative to existing needs. The recommended allocation to the 19 counties was developed in consultation with the Department of Finance and is provided in the board report. Funding would be distributed among these counties to help address staffing, training, and case management needs. The remaining $200,000 of the $10 million allocation would be used for the BSCC to contract for an evaluation of the Indigent Defense Grant in consultation with the State Public Defender's Office. At this time, staff recommends that the board approve the Indigent Defense Grant Program funding recommendations and authorize staff to contract for an external evaluation of the grant program. Madam Chair, this concludes staff's presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you. Prior to your questions, Ms. McComb, would you like to make any remarks?
Yes, please. Thank you very much for your time, Madam Chair and board members. I wanted to briefly explain our reasoning in why we targeted the money the way we did. The selection of counties of less than 550 fewer than 550,000 residents was in order to assure that the money budgeted was large enough to make a significant difference to the county budgets for indigent services. I want to explain why we selected counties that had institutional public defenders. Just by way of a brief background, counties provide indigent defense in a variety of ways. Sometimes it's by direct contract, sometimes it's with other non-governmental players, but a large number of them, including those that we selected in this grant, provide them by way of a county public defender. A county public defender is an employee of the county with a responsibility to a board of supervisors and for the budget. And we felt that for this set of grants, we really needed an institutional partner to assure that the money was used for what it's purposed for, and that is for the improvement of public defense. And with a county public defender, we have a reliable partner in that regard. With that, I'd like to acknowledge the assistance of Mr. McGuire and Mr. Goodrich, who were very helpful in this, and with the Department of Finance, who we've also worked with to put this grant program together. With that, I'm willing to take any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Looking now to the board for any questions or comments. Seeing no hand raises, I'll move to public comment. Adam?
We have no public comment on this item.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion and a second, please.
This is Gordon. I move approval.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second. Kathy Ellison.
There we go. We got a couple of seconds. Pick your poison there, Adam. And now we will do a poll of the body.
Chair Penner?
Aye.
Ms. Allison?
Aye.
Mr. Groudon? Oh, he's recused. Mr. Gore is not here. Mr. Seal?
Aye.
Ms. Zuniga?
Aye.
Bronco? Mr. Bronco?
Aye.
Mr. Mills?
Aye.
Mr. Budnick?
Aye.
Mr. Steinhardt?
Aye.
Ms. Kumpion?
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion carries.
Thank you. Moving to item D.
As I mentioned, Chair Rios had wanted to be here, but her schedule did not permit. So I'd like to ask Tim Polasek to please make the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. I am Timothy Polasek, Field Representative in the Division of Corrections Planning and Grant Programs. Today I'm presenting Agenda Item D, Title II Grant Program, Identifying Effective Interventions and Replicable Strategies for Reducing Racial and Ethnic Disparities, Request for Proposals. This agenda item requests board approval of the Title II Grant Program Request for Proposals developed by the State Advisory Committee on Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, also known as the SACJAB, and the Reducing Racial and Ethnic Disparity Subcommittee Working Group, which is comprised of both SACJAB and SACJAB RED subcommittee members. The RFP, the SACJAB membership, and the working group rosters are included in your materials. The SACJAB is requesting to solicit a contractor with racial and ethnic disparity project experience to develop a state and county dashboard to conduct a review of a sample of factors that contribute to racial and ethnic disparity, and to develop a replicable framework for determining the appropriate measurable local intervention. The final project will assist the SACJAB in making data-driven recommendations on the allocation of Title II funding directed towards reducing racial and ethnic disparity in the juvenile justice system. Key components of the RFP include that the contractor will work with BSCC staff and the SACJAB RED subcommittee to select juvenile racial and ethnic disparity data elements and metrics to best analyze and identify disparities that will be included in data dashboards, report tables, both statewide and at the county level. The contractor will conduct an in-depth review of a sample of counties to identify the factors that reduce racial and ethnic disparities, including policies, practices that contribute to racial and ethnic disparities, challenges and barriers to reducing racial and ethnic disparities, and it will also highlight policies, practices, and interventions shown to actually reduce the disparity. The review of the sample of the county shall be used to develop a replicable framework that will assist in determining the most appropriate measurable interventions and or replicable strategies to implement to reduce racial and ethnic disparities. A maximum of $300,000 may be requested with the project period of up to 18 months from the start date of the contract. A couple keynote dates. The request for proposals will be released Friday, November 20th, should you approve. Proposals will be then due back to BSCC by January 29th, 2021, which would have the RFP out for 10 weeks. Funding recommendations presented to the board, they should be brought forward to the April 8th meeting in 2021, and it would then be anticipated that the project start date would begin around June 1, 2021. So for this project, we actually were able to receive technical assistance from the U.S. Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, which is the federal oversight organization of the Title II funds. So I'd like to thank Dr. Moises Prospero for his help and support in the development of the scope of work. I would also like to thank SACJAB Chair Rachel Rios for her leadership on the project, as well as Casey Wormuth, Ashley Garibaldi, and Stacy Riley from the BSCC Research Department. Their input was invaluable. And then also the Title II analyst, Deanna Ridgway, who many of you know for her invaluable support of the working group. So as a note, for your information, the Juvenile Justice Reauthorization Act of 2018, the JJRA, now requires states to utilize data to support decision-making of funding recommendations. This project places California at the forefront nationwide in developing a data-driven framework to address and reduce racial and ethnic disparities. Since our project began, other states, including Missouri, but also Massachusetts, have begun similar work as recommended by the OJJDP technical service providers based on this project that we've begun. OJJDP has also requested that we plan to present on this project next year at the OJJDP training conference in the fall of 2021. So on behalf of the Title II Grant Program, RED Working Group, and the SACJAB membership, staff recommends the board take the following actions. Approve and authorize release of the RFP as recommended by the Reducing Racial and Ethnic Disparity Subcommittee Working Group and approved by the SACJAB. This concludes my report. I'd be happy to take any questions.
All right. Thank you, Tim. And you did a great job of thanking everybody else. And I'd like to add our gratitude to you for all the work you've done on this. I now look to the board for any questions or comments. Seeing none. Adam, do we have anybody in the queue?
We do not have public comment for this item.
Okay, I'm now looking for a motion and a second, please.
Move approval, Steinhardt.
All right, do we have a second?
Second, Mills.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Adam, will you pull the body?
Chair Penner?
Aye.
Ms. Allison?
Aye.
Mr. Groudon?
Sorry, aye.
Mr. Seal?
Aye.
Ms. Zuniga?
Aye.
Mr. Barranco?
Aye.
Mr. Mills?
Aye.
Mr. Budnick?
Aye.
Mr. Steinhardt?
Aye.
Ms. Kumpion?
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to move on now to item E. And before I do that, I'd just like to compliment Sheriff Groudon for coming back to the board meeting on his own volition. We did not have to go search for him after his recusal. So we want to be positive about great behaviors here at the BSCC. Item E is Mary Wakefield on.
Yes, good morning.
Morning, Mary.
I have Matt Gutierrez in IT is going to be doing the PowerPoint for me. So thank you, Matt, for putting that up. As I said, my name is Mary Wakefield, and I'm a field representative with the Standards and Training for Corrections Division. Agenda item E is STC's annual report. It's an information item only and focuses on program data and compliance findings for last fiscal year, as well as provides an update on where we stand with the new training standards that were adopted by this board in January of 2019. I'd like to start with an overview of the impact of COVID-19 on STC training compliance. Next slide, please. In response to training courses being canceled statewide starting in March of 2020, the BSCC issued a field memo instructing local corrections agencies that training that was not completed due to COVID would not be considered an out of compliance finding for fiscal year 2019-2020. Per this memo direction and the county stay-at-home orders, travel restrictions, and widespread cancellation of training, any training non-compliance issue due to COVID was identified as a mitigating circumstance. This exception was made in alignment with compliance policy that allows the consideration of extraordinary circumstances. Therefore, training non-compliance that occurred as a direct result of COVID was classified as mitigating circumstance and did not result in an out of compliance finding. Currently, agencies are seeking alternative ways to provide job training to their staff. Some agencies have their own training departments, and their county orders have allowed them to resume limited training. Others are relying more heavily on computer-based training, and STC is maintaining a list of certified courses for agency reference. Still others are using on-the-job training modules and delivering training on site. The barriers and available solutions are unique to each agency and county, and STC is working closely with participating agencies to assist them. STC conducted the annual compliance reviews virtually this year. For most agencies, this consisted of a video or telephone interview and the review of electronic training records or a visual inspection of those records through a video call. Across the state, there were 64 staff who did not receive their required core training due to COVID-19 and 2,826 staff who did not receive their required annual training. This represents less than 9% of the total STC staff not meeting their STC training requirements due to COVID. Agencies that were unable to comply with the STC training standards due to COVID were required to document the barriers. Additionally, staff that did not complete core training due to COVID were documented so that STC staff can follow up to ensure that they receive their required training when COVID-19 measures allow training to resume. STC will continue to consider COVID-19 training non-compliance as a mitigating circumstance until the situation is stabilized and training is available again. Next slide, please. The STC program is responsible for setting standards for the selection and training of local corrections personnel working for sheriff's offices, police departments, and probation departments. Additionally, we set the standards for 4 modified community correctional facilities under contract with CDCR. In fiscal year 2019-2020, 157 agencies participated in the STC program. This is 3 less than last year because CDCR closed 3 modified community correctional facilities. STC agencies employed nearly 32,500 local corrections staff. We also have 263 private providers who deliver STC certified training to agency staff. Next slide, please. Agencies administered approximately 15,500 of the STC entry-level selection exam to fill vacancies during this last year. Next slide, please. Moving on to compliance. All agencies that participate in the STC program must meet STC's training standards. These standards require that all employees complete a prescribed course of training within the first year of hire and a defined number of training hours every year thereafter. The specific requirements vary based on classification. Each year, STC conducts a review of every participating agency's training records to ensure that those training standards are met. This past year, these reviews occurred virtually due to COVID. With nearly 32,500 staff statewide, it's impossible to review every training record, so STC reviews a random sample of training files. As part of the compliance review, agencies are also required to do an internal audit and identify any employee that does not meet the training requirements. We include those trainees in our sample as well. The result of our review of those training records are used to determine compliance status. Next slide, please. STC has a 100% compliance requirement. To be found in compliance, all of an agency's employees must have completed the required STC training or met one of STC's criteria for exception. That criteria includes circumstances such as medical or other types of leave during the year. COVID-19 was an exemption added this last year as well. If an agency fails to train all of its employees and does not meet STC's criteria for exceptions, the agency is found out of compliance. Next slide, please. For fiscal year 2019-2020, 155 agencies were found to be in compliance and 2 agencies were found to be out of compliance. You can see those agencies on attachment 4 of your report. Within those out of compliance findings, 2 staff did not complete the core training requirement and 2 staff did not complete the annual training compliant requirement. None of these deficiencies were COVID related. Agencies that are found out of compliance are required to submit a corrective action plan, and STC staff conduct quarterly reviews to monitor their progress towards that plan. Both of the agencies found out of compliance have completed a corrective action plan that will be monitored by their assigned field rep to help them come into compliance in the current year, and we are confident that they will be able to do so. Next slide, please. In addition to our regular program activities and compliance review process, STC has been working on implementing the new core training standards that were approved by this board in January of last year. In order to provide adequate time for agencies to revise all of their training curriculum to include the new requirements, the implementation date was set for July 1st, 2020. All core courses offered after that date include the new curriculum. Certification of those courses is ongoing, and agencies submit courses as they offer the new training. Since many training providers are not currently offering training due to COVID, they have not yet submitted their courses for certification. But to date, STC has certified 42 new core academies, and this represents almost 70% of the core courses that are slated for certification. Next slide, please. Just as a reminder, the new standards that were revised, they revised all of the core training programs and created 6 new transfer academies to accommodate staff transferring from one classification to another. Next slide. This year, BSCC also implemented a new selection exam. This is the written exam that candidates must pass in order to be hired into an entry-level corrections job. The new selection exam went into effect August 17th, 2020. And the major changes that were made to the exam were, it is a single exam for all 3 classifications, but with different pass points for each classification. And personality assessment items were removed from the exam so that it only contains cognitive items such as reading, writing, math, and applying rules. This concludes the STC annual report. May I answer any questions?
Any questions from board members?
Yes.
So there was an attachment to this item, E2, a 4-page list of COVID-19 counts. It was unclear, since the way it was labeled, what those counts were about. Maybe you could explain, are those individuals who tested positive for COVID? For example, in LA, probation, the listed number, COVID, annual LA probation, 592. Who are those people?
Those were staff members who were unable to complete all of their training hours due to COVID restrictions. It could have been canceled classes. It could have been unable to attend for whatever reason.
We
Great.
probably could have labeled that column a little bit more clearly, David.
I didn't know if it was about staff or inmates, but thank you. You answered the question.
It's the officers who did not complete their training because of COVID.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board? 157 agencies, 32,000 staff, 15,000 exams. A
lot.
Mary, you've been very busy. Very busy. Appreciate that. Looking now to the public for any comment.
Madam Chair, we have no public comment for this item.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion and a second, please.
Madam Chair, this item does not require a vote.
Well, I didn't say it required it. I just said I was looking for it. So we'll move on. I knew it was an information item. Adam, you're so quick. Okay, item G, skipping F. Item G, adult reentry warm handoff.
And Madam Chair, before we begin this item, I would look to Mr. Budnick and Ms. Coupion to recuse themselves from this discussion item. The Anti-Racism Coalition is actually a current grantee.
Right, recusing.
Let the record reflect that Mr. Budnick was really quick to the draw on recusal. Okay, so I see both of them have signed off. Okay. Tanya, you ready?
I am. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. My name is Tanya Hill, and I am a field representative in the Corrections Planning and Grants Programs Division. I am before you this morning to present Agenda Item G. This agenda item requests approval to release the request for proposals for the Adult Reentry Grant Warm Handoff Cohort 2. The Adult Reentry Grant provides funding for community-based organizations to deliver reentry services for people formerly incarcerated in state prison. The grant was established in the Budget Act of 2018 to fund 3 components of reentry services: rental assistance, warm handoff, and rehabilitation of existing property or buildings. Additional funding has been awarded in both 2019 and 2020 to expand reentry services under the rental assistance and warm handoff components. To date, the Adult Reentry Grant has provided well over $100 million to community-based organizations to fund 77 Adult Reentry Grant projects. In September 2020, the board approved a request for BSCC staff to make minor and technical edits to the existing RFP from 2019 in an effort to expedite the development process due to the urgency for reentry resources in the community related to COVID-19 housing instability and the resulting early releases of individuals from state prison. Staff made minor technical edits to include updated dates and timeframes, as well as the revised eligibility criteria that was approved by the board at the September 2020 board meeting. The eligibility criteria was updated as follows. Applicants that applied in round 1 and did not receive a conditional award are eligible to submit a new application in this current round of funding. A warm handoff applicant that applied for and was awarded less than $500,000 is eligible to compete in this round of funding and may receive the difference between the amount received and $500,000. For example, if an applicant applied for $300,000 in the first round, the applicant may apply for $200,000 in this round. An applicant may only receive a total of $500,000 combined for both rounds of funding. And the last edit to the eligibility is that a warm handoff applicant that was conditionally awarded $500,000 in the previous award period is not eligible to apply for this round of funding. On September 23rd, 2020, the revised RFP was posted on the BSCC website in both track changes and clean copy format, and it remained available for a 30-day public comment period through October 23rd, 2020. We also requested feedback from current ARG grantees. One public comment was received and provided to the board. The public comment addressed expanding the eligibility criteria to include current grantees. As noted previously, that is not the recommended approach at this time. In summary, staff recommends that the board accept the staff edits and technical changes to the RFP and approve the release of the Adult Reentry Grant Program Warm Handoff Cohort 2 RFP. Once approved for release, we anticipate completing the RFP process and returning to the board to present funding recommendations at the June 10th, 2021 board meeting with an anticipated project start date of July 1, 2021. This concludes my presentation, and I am happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Tanya. And thanks to everybody that worked on this important grant. Looking to the board for any comments. Seeing none. Adam, do we have anybody in the queue?
We do not have public comment for this item.
If Adam will allow me, I'd now like to ask for a motion and a second, please.
Well, this is Gordon. I move that we adopt and follow the staff recommendation.
Okay, can I get a second?
Ingrowden, second.
You got a motion and a second. Adam, will you pull the body?
Chair Penner,
Aye.
Ms. Allison,
Aye.
Mr. Groudon,
Aye.
Mr. Seal,
Aye.
Ms. Zuniga,
Aye.
Mr. Bronco,
Aye.
Mr. Mills,
Aye.
Mr. Steinhardt,
Aye.
Ms. Kumpion, recused, and Mr. Budnick recused. Madam Chair, we have the motion carries.
Thank you, Adam. We're moving on now to item H. I see Helene here ready to present. This is Proposition 64, Health and Safety Grant Program.
It is. Good afternoon. Or is it still out? Nope, still morning. Okay. Good morning, Madam Chair and board members.
I apologize to interject, Helene.
Oh, that's right. You need to do your thing.
This is the our cannabis grant, Prop 64 grant. I think Sheriff Groudon was looking to recuse himself on this one. And again, I'm not sure if any of our county folks or if Chief Mills was going to recuse himself from this one. Again, this would make some other counties, additional counties, eligible to apply for these funds, which will deal with mitigation from Prop 64. Chief Seal, I don't know what the status is of Sacramento County right now. The probation department might be interested in some of these funds, which can be used for youth diversion and education as well.
I'll recuse myself.
Okay.
All right, then we need to invite back then Norma and Scott Budnick, please.
And we do need to invite back those folks.
And this is Dean. I'm going to recuse myself also.
Okay, and I see Sheriff Mills is not on the video, but I'm assuming that's a recusal.
Yeah, I'm recusing.
Okay, thank you. Waiting for a Norma and Scott. There's Norma.
This is Scott. I'm back.
Thank you. Okay, Helene.
Okay, great. Good morning, Madam Chair, board members. My name is Helene Zettner, and I am a field representative with the Corrections Planning and Grant Programs Division. I'm before you today to present Agenda Item H, requesting approval to release the amended Proposition 64 Public Health and Safety Grant Program Request for Proposals, or RFP, and to appoint a chair for the RFP scoring panel. Proposition 64 legalized the recreational use of cannabis in California for individuals 21 years of age and older, and a portion of the tax revenue generated from the cultivation and retail sale of cannabis or cannabis products would go toward providing funds for a variety of grant programs to assist in mitigating local impacts due to the legalization of recreational cannabis. As you may remember, I was before you in September with funding recommendations for the initial round of Prop 64 grant program awards, a process that began in October of last year, and you awarded grant funds to 9 counties and 1 city as cohort 1 under that RFP. As Aaron stated earlier, at the time of the initial RFP development, California Revenue and Taxation Code stated that eligible applicants could not ban any of the following types of cultivation, or they would be ineligible for funding. And that would be indoor commercial cultivation, indoor personal cultivation, outdoor commercial cultivation, or outdoor personal cultivation. And I'm going to share a slide with you for the difference in the Revenue and Taxation Code. So in September of this year, Governor Newsom assigned Assembly Bill 1872, which amended the Revenue and Taxation Code to allow for broader eligibility criteria in order to apply for subsequent funding solicitations. The updated language now states that counties and cities are eligible to apply if they do not ban both indoor and outdoor commercial cannabis cultivation. And there on the slide, you can see the difference between the two revenue and taxation codes. Currently, there is almost $52 million available for funding a new cohort of Proposition 64 grantees. The RFP you have before you as attachment H1 provides the document with various amendments from the previously released RFP. Besides updating the Revenue and Taxation Code and corresponding definitions, updates to the funding amount, the timeline of RFP activities, and all the dates associated with the new cohort 2 solicitation period. All other RFP components remain unaltered. However, I would like to note that those awarded the Proposition 64 grants under the round 1 of funding will not be eligible for funding under this RFP. In addition to approving the amended RFP for a new round of funding, which would tentatively begin May of 2021, staff is requesting a chair be appointed to the Prop 64 scoring panel. This panel will read and rate the cohort 2 proposals and provide their funding recommendations to this board at its April 2021 meeting. So to summarize, staff is seeking approval from the board to approve the release of the amended Prop 64 Public Health and Safety Grant Program Request for Proposals for Cohort 2, appoint a chair of the Proposition 64 Public Health and Safety Grant Scoring Panel, delegate authority to the chair to work with BSCC staff to establish a scoring panel with relevant subject matter expertise, and to authorize the scoring panel to make funding recommendations to this board. This concludes my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Looking to the body for any questions or comments. Looking to Adam for anyone in the queue.
We have 4 members of the public in the queue. I'm going to call on Sarah Michael Gaston first.
Hi again, my name is Sarah Michael Gaston. I'm with Youth Forward in Sacramento. I'm an advocate for racial justice and health equity and policies and systems that affect children and their families. For the Prop 64 Public Health and Safety Grant, I ask that you prioritize youth service providers and justice-involved individuals with direct experience in the justice system when soliciting and selecting your scoring panel members. Directly impacted young people and community-based service providers supporting youth have critical experience needed to effectively rate Prop 64 grant proposals. I also want to emphasize that youth prevention and development is not law enforcement. In many communities impacted by the war on drugs and mass incarceration, community organizations with deep roots in their community have developed programs and models for positive youth leadership development that are grounded in racial and health equity and are responsive to youth interests and priorities. These organizations should be funded to provide education and prevent substance use among young people. Unfortunately, police aren't trusted in these communities because there is a historical pattern of over-criminalization. I encourage that local governments partnering with youth-focused CBOs for this grant to be given preference over expanding law enforcement. I hope the board will take my comments into consideration, and I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Suzanne Fox.
Okay, Adam, want to move on?
We have Tumani Drew.
Okay.
And
Seeing none.
last, we have Renee Menard.
Good nearly afternoon. My name is Renee Menard with the Center on Juvenile and Criminal Justice. I had the honor of serving on the Prop 64 Public Health and Safety Grant ESC for Cohort 1. And I appreciate all the work by fellow ESC members and BSCC staff that was put into establishing guidelines to narrow the priorities of this grant. In the creation of the Round 1 RFP, the ESC decided to require all funded projects to spend a minimum of 10% and really up to 100% of funds on a youth prevention and development component. Given the focus of youth development and prevention, I would like to raise the need for BSCC staff to prioritize youth service providers and justice-involved individuals with direct experience when soliciting and selecting scoring panel members. Youth prevention programs are best facilitated in community settings without exposure to law enforcement. Directly impacted young people and community-based youth service providers have critical expertise needed to effectively rate Prop 64 grant proposals and ensure funding meets community needs across California. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that is all for public comment.
Okay, and as we go forward, I had the pleasure of chairing this RFP or Executive Steering Committee and in Round 1, and I'm also happy to tell you that I'll be relinquishing my duties to board member Gordon Barranco, who's agreed to chair the scoring panel. And I want to certainly express my appreciation for you being willing to do that, Gordon. And if you have any remarks you'd like to make now.
Only that I appreciate the opportunity and I'm looking forward to it. And Helene, you and I need to talk on the phone pretty soon.
All right, so I believe we've got any other board members wish to comment? So we have board input, we have public input. I'd now ask for a motion and a second.
This is Scott Budnick. I'll make the motion.
Thank you. A second, please.
I'll second Steinhardt.
Right. Adam, will you poll the body?
Chair Penner.
Aye.
Miss Allison.
Aye.
Mr. Groudon recused. Mr. Seal.
Mr. Seal recused.
Zuniga. Mr. Barranco.
Aye.
Mr. Mills recused. Mr. Budnick.
Aye.
Mr. Steinhardt.
Aye.
Ms. Kumpion.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion carries.
Thank you, Adam. And thank you to the board. Moving now to item I, the Corona Emergency Supplemental Funding Program. I see Ricardo.
Hi, Madam Chair, but yes, I think first I will defer to council on potential recusement and pulling of lots.
Thank you. And before we do that, I'd invite those who recused on the previous matter to hop back on.
Yeah, so the coronavirus supplemental fund, the money is going to go directly to counties, but then there's sort of a requirement that will have counties come up with a plan, including providing a set aside for some community-based organizations. It is targeted to reentry populations, so I would encourage our probation board members to recuse themselves. But then I kind of need to see where we are with anyone else who may want to recuse themselves as well, so I can get at least a count to see where we are and whether or not we have to draw lots, because I think that's where we're headed, but I just want to confirm that.
So that would be Chief Zuniga and Chief Seal. There we go. Any other members of the board? And because this is kind of across the board funding, if you see a conflict for you coming down the road, please feel free to exercise your.
I think in the abundance of caution, I'm going to recuse.
And Dean Grouden here, I will recuse myself also.
All right.
All right, so I think we're down to Chair Penner, Mr. Steinhardt. I think, I assume Ms. Kumpion is going to recuse us if Mr.
Yeah,
Button.
I was just going to say, I think I better also.
Okay, so both of you may leave now. Scott?
I think we're down to 4.
Don't go too far.
Which is, I think we can't get a motion passed based on 4. So by way of background, when we have an issue involving our board, where because of potential conflicts of interest, and again, this is very potential because we do not know exactly, and most of even our board members don't know exactly where this funding is likely going to end up, but it's potential to go to their employers and receiving grant funding from the board that then goes to their employers, does create a potential conflict of interest, which we normally resolve by the recusal process, which allows the board to conduct its business lawfully by still allowing those board members to recuse. But when we have too few board members in order for a motion to pass, and we have a necessity in order to allocate some of this funding, the law does allow us to draw lots at random so that we can maintain a quorum and to allow for our motions to pass. So with that, what I intend to do at this time is to assign random numbers to our board members as follows. And I would look to see, I guess Guillermo was not able to make it back on, and Supervisor Lohr is not here either.
But we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us. Does that get us where we need to be?
We need one more, I think.
Well, 6 is
Or
okay.
does the item have to pass by the majority, or is it a?
It's a majority of those present. So we actually only have 11 present, which means we need 6 to vote in the affirmative. So
I think we have 6. 1, 2, 3.
No, but he's saying in order to pass the item.
Okay, all right.
Unless I misunderstand you.
Yeah, we need 6. We need 6. So it would have to require unanimous vote of those present and voting.
Let me see if I can get Guillermo back on at least a phone call if he can't connect via video.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I see 5 right now.
And Aaron, is that okay if Guillermo comes back on the phone for this item?
I think we'll be okay if Guillermo comes back.
Okay.
Hey, just to clarify, Aaron, this is Andy Mills. We're city government, and we're obviously not a county government receiving these funds. I don't think that we would be in a position to receive the money. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, it's a direct appropriation to the counties. The counties are sort of tasked with divvying up the money. It's theoretically possible the County of Santa Cruz may want to fund your office, Chief Mills, but I think it's because the money is sort of targeted at reentry. It seems unlikely, but I don't want to say it's impossible.
Okay.
Kathy, any luck with Guillermo?
I'm gonna actually call him. He's not responding to my text.
Sounds like lottery time.
We'll just see if Kathy can get him on the phone. If she can't, behind her back, we're gonna make fun of her.
He responded. He's joining.
Okay, thank you. I was gonna tease you, Secretary Allison, on this one.
Can't even control my own people? Is that the problem? I got it. Calling in now.
All right. Sean, do you know how to let him in if he's on the phone?
Of course. Give me a moment. I'm waiting to see
Okay.
the number pop up.
It's a 213 area code number?
Thank you for that. That's not the number that I had listed.
Aaron, so you believe it's best for me to recuse?
It's really up to you, Chief Mills. If you do recuse, then I will be drawing lots at that point, which we can do. I mean, it's not a big deal one way or the other. So if you want to recuse out of abundance of caution, that's more than fine.
I'll go ahead and get it done. I'll go ahead and recuse.
Okay, so with Chief Mills,
just because I really want you to draw lots.
I know this is the best part. All right, so this is what I'm going to do. So we are down to are we down to three board members? Kat, Secretary Allison, and then potentially Guillermo. I'm gonna go ahead and draw 3 lots, so that we will again even avoid the issue of whether or not we should have a quorum or not. I don't believe we need a physical quorum in the room to conduct our business. It's majority.
This is Guillermo. I just joined.
Hi,
All right.
Guillermo. Thank you.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I will draw 2 lots, the minimum number. And the way I'm going to do this, and
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a random number generator on my phone. I'm assigning the following numbers to our board members who have recused themselves, and I'm going to force them back in the room. Hopefully, they haven't walked away from their computers. Sheriff Groudon is going to be 1. Sheriff Gore is going to be number 2. Chief Zuniga is going to be number 3. Chief Mills is going to be number 4. Mr. Budnick, number 5. Ms. Kumpion, number 6. And Chief Seal, number 7. I'm going to draw 2 lots. So number 4, Chief Mills is back. He tried to get away. And number 7, Chief Seal.
All right. There's Chief Seal. Let me see if I can get yeah. Chief Mills, apparently rolling on briefly. So, all right. We have the adequate amount of people. Is there any instructions now, Aaron, that you want to give?
Not at this time. Just again, for the record, we're basically invoking a rule of necessity in order to conduct the board's business. And requiring us to do so in order to allocate the coronavirus emergency supplemental fund.
Thank you. So continuing now with item I on the agenda, Ricardo Goodrich.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and board members again. My name is Ricardo Goodrich with the Corrections Planning and Grants Programs Division, presenting agenda item I.
Hold on just a moment, please. Somebody needs to mute. There we go. Go ahead.
There we go. Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, this agenda item requests board approval and release of the Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Program request for applications. This item would make approximately $41.7 million in federal funding available to county governments to help respond to the current pandemic. The Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Program is administered by the U.S. Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Assistance. Funding must be used to prevent, prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus. The Bureau of Justice Assistance allocated approximately $93.6 million to California. Of the $93.6 million, 35.1 million was made available to local governments through an application process that did not include the BSCC. Separately, 58.5 million was made available to the state. Please reference attachments I-2 and I-3 for additional information regarding local allocations. Of the $58.5 million state award, the BSCC retained 1.7 million, or approximately 3%, to administer the program. You may recall, on July 16, the board allocated $15 million to the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation to help address the emergency temporary housing needs of individuals released from state prison due to the coronavirus. And on September 10th, the board authorized staff to develop a request for applications to allocate the remainder 41.71 million. Attachment I-1 includes a copy of the request for application packet. The first half of the packet includes the proposal instructions, and the second half includes the actual application. Key RFA components include: this is a non-competitive formula-based request for applications. After adjusting for the direct Bureau of Justice Assistance allocation to cities and counties and local population figures as of January 1, 2020, each county will receive approximately $1.93 per person. The minimum award allocation works out to $2,207, the maximum $7.9 million, and the average award allocation is $732,684. Eligible applicants are California counties. However, counties must pass through a minimum of 20% of the award to non-governmental community-based organizations impacted by the coronavirus and providing services in the county. Counties are required to establish a local advisory committee that at a minimum includes representatives from non-governmental community-based organizations, tribes, and cities within the county that are impacted by the proposal. Allowable projects and purchases include, but are not limited to, personal protective equipment, hiring, overtime, as well as supplies. A few more details to note: proposals are due by February 1, 2021, and successful applicants will be funded from March 31, 2021 to January 31, 2022. Again, I just want to reiterate that these funds are intended to help communities respond to the pandemic, and we encourage counties to engage tribes and non-governmental community-based organizations. At this time, staff recommends that the board approve and authorize release of the Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Program request for application that includes the proposal instructions and application packet. Madam Chair, this concludes staff's presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Ricardo. I'm looking to the board for any questions or comments. Mr. Steinhardt?
Thank you. And thank you, Ricardo. I have a couple of questions, and I hope you'll bear with me just briefly here. First of all, it looks like on the staff report, there's an error at the bottom of page 2 referring to the program as a competitive RFP. That doesn't really alter what we're doing, but it's just a little error in the report. But secondly, and more importantly, when I read the materials, I actually wrote a note to Ricardo because I felt that there was confusion about the permissible uses of these funds once counties have them, as between reentry populations and in custody populations, also as between juvenile populations or clients and adult clients. And the answer I got was that there was no constraint that prevented a county from choosing to use these funds to serve any and all of those groups within its discretion. But I don't think that's made entirely clear in the materials or even in the RFP on page 2. The eligible uses language is very, very slim on that. So I hope that somehow in the meetings that occur or in the information that's transmitted to counties, that or maybe a fact sheet, FAQ thing, that they get a more comprehensive picture of exactly what can be done here. I don't know that we need to amend the RFA at this point, but so just that point that the range of permissible uses was not quite clear. And Ricardo, we did have that conversation. And then thirdly, really my last point is as to the local advisory committee. the grant says that counties should include NGO representatives on the committee, but it's not a requirement. And admittedly, and we went through this in the Youth Reinvestment Grant, not every county has a robust list of community-based or non-governmental organizations that can step in and serve. So I kind of understand the should, but I still think that, you know, for most counties, that should be as close to a requirement as possible, especially given the pass-through 20%. And I think it needs to be strengthened in the RFP. For example, what if a county doesn't include any NGO reps in its application or on its list? Then, you know, there are no review criteria for that. There's nobody that says they can't get the grant. It's just completely discretionary. So I would look, you know, at page 11, there are some review criteria, 1 through 3. And on page 11 of the RFA, I would actually like to see section 3. I don't know if anybody has it, but this is a section 3 that tells counties what they have to submit in terms of the local advisory committee criteria. And 3.2 is provide a CESF local advisory committee roster. And I would like to see that amended at least to say a roster including member affiliations and their NGO status as relevant, including member affiliations and their NGO status as relevant. So the counties have to, you know, show their cards on who's on the group by NGO status, and that the staff can therefore make an informed interpretation. And that would probably require some changes to Appendix D. And Ricardo, you know what I mean about that. So those were my main concerns.
Ricardo, so I'm getting the idea that you knew about Mr. Steinhardt's comments prior to this board meeting. Were there any adjustments made?
No. So I think the one component that was raised prior was just I think just an overall recognition about going back to a prior board meeting. I think board member Steinhardt did raise some questions about the NGO component and you know, how broadly you know, we could require or could encourage. And as noted, we certainly left it at, you know, a higher elevation, not wanting to compel folks, but I think, again, the suggestions that he's made now, I think certainly are things that we can absolutely accommodate if the board is in agreement with that as well.
Any members of the board want to comment on that? I'm not substantially clear on where the line would be drawn on an NGO or not being participating, because if there are none, do you have to prove that? I mean, what's your position on this?
Yeah, and all I was suggesting was not criteria for elimination if they don't comply. All I was suggesting was amending the proposal narrative instructions for describing the local advisory committee to include a designation as to whether the members were representing NGOs or not, just simply that. So just to provide the staff and others with the information. And so I had, again, suggested that 3.2 be provide a local advisory committee roster, Appendix D, including member affiliations and their NGO status as relevant. Simply information.
Okay. Ricardo?
Absolutely, we could do that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other comments from the board? Question?
Yeah, I have one. What is the attachment I3, Ricardo? What is that, the relationship? Because it lists a lot of cities receiving funding there.
Yes. So the Bureau of Justice Assistance provided direct allocations to cities and counties. And so we wanted to make that information available to the board and to the public as well. We've shared that before at prior meetings, but just to be fully transparent about how California's full award was allocated.
Got it. Thank you.
So that money does not come under the purview of this board. Okay. Any public comment?
We have one public comment. That's Israel Villa.
Good afternoon, buenas tardes, Israel Villa with City YCJ. And foremost, I want to thank David for raising those concerns. I agree, and so thank you for uplifting that, and also for the changes made. And I just on this section here, I just really wanted to express that I think 20% passed to CBOs kind of feels like a slap in the face, and I say that because ever since this pandemic happened, I know that our community-based organizations have really stepped up and even collaborated with CDC. They've been picking up people, transferring them to their counties, housing. Our folks have been housing people, feeding people, providing laptops, Wi-Fi, phones because of the new virtual reality to ensure that program and services continue, so on and so forth. So my point being that our community-based partners and stakeholders, I feel really have always been, at the negative end of funding. And yeah, just that 20%, I mean, it's something, but I feel like it should at least be 50-50, if not more towards the community base, because the reality is, and I know from my personal experiences, community-based organizations, program and services are much more effective at reducing recidivism rates, at healing, and just overall effectiveness in comparison to our standard and usual law enforcement punishment models. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a final, Adam?
Yes.
Okay, turning back to the board, looking for a motion and a second.
I'll go ahead and move it with a little change that I think we understand to the 3.2 local advisory committee information.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll bite.
I don't know what everyone's
second.
reluctance is, but I'll second.
Kathy Allison.
Chief
Gordon.
Mills is second, and you're kind of frozen, Gordon, so your jumping in was very slow. So thank you, Chief Mills. Adam, will you pull the body?
Chair Penner,
Aye.
Miss Allison,
Aye.
Mr. Vera Rosa,
You're on mute, Guillermo.
I will come back to him. Mr. Groudon recused, and Mr. Seal.
Aye.
Mr. Barranco.
Aye.
Ms. Zuniga recused. Mr. Mills.
Aye.
Mr. Budnick and Ms. Kumpion also recused. Mr. Steinhardt.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion carries.
Did we do that without Guillermo?
He's asking how to unmute. It's *6.
Yes.
Mr. Vera Rosa.
Thank
Give
you.
him 1 second. There he is.
Aye, there he
Aye.
is.
Thank you. We wanted to make this as difficult as possible for you today, Guillermo, and I think we've really accomplished that. So I believe the motion carries, and thank you all for this slightly complicated process on this agenda item. Looking for the other board members to return.
We haven't done that lottery draw since 2013.
Oh, then that's
what fun it was, remember?
Right. Right. I see Norma and Scott Budnick waiting for you.
And before we begin this item, Madam Chair, I think we're going to ask Chief Seal and Chief Zuniga to recuse themselves, as this has to do with the potential facilities grant program.
There's Norma. Scott, are you there? There you go. Okay, welcome back. In your absence, we recused Chief Zuniga and Chief Seal on this agenda item, and we're moving to item J, Senate Bill 823, the implementation and planning of youth programs and facilities grants. It's an honor to have Executive Director Howard and Deputy Director John Prince reporting together. We'll see who gets first honors.
And congratulations on arriving at the last agenda item for the day. Thank you so much for all of the good discussion and a lot of great work going out today. Good afternoon. I'm going to make just a few introductory remarks and then ask my colleague John Prince to provide further detail on this recommendation. The board will recall that SB 823, the bill that implements the realignment of DJJ to county responsibility, includes a $9.6 million grant called the Regional Youth Programs and Facilities Grant. In the statute, there's only very general direction provided, along with some reporting requirements for down the road where we'll report on how the funding was used. And in the many discussions that are going on across the state right now about implementation of SB 823, it's also clear that there's an interest in getting these one-time grants out to the field as soon as possible. Chair Penner and I have had some conversations with the Department of Finance and the governor's office about this funding, and the guidance that we received was to seek information from the counties about what the highest priority near-term needs are for this funding. So with that, I'm going to ask my colleague John Prince to talk about our recommendation for next steps by the board. John?
Right. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, board. Good afternoon. My name is John Prince, the Deputy Director of the County Facilities Construction Division. Getting more into the specifics a bit of the SB 823, it directs the BSCC to award one-time grants to counties for the purposes of providing resources for infrastructure-related needs and improvements to assist counties in the development of a local continuum of care. This allocates $9.6 million with a maximum of 5% set aside for admin costs borne by the BSCC. The reporting requirements of this also includes information about the numbers of regional placement beds. So we're assuming that as part of this RFI, we will have information about the number of beds in that. In considering the issue of specialized programming, the need for sex offender treatment and gender-specific programming for females, among others, are frequently highlighted as priority needs. SB 823 does not explicitly require the board to administer a competitive grant. This feature gives a bit more flexibility to allow the board to seek information on the high priority needs of these youth. In order to provide more specific information for the board for consideration as how to allocate these funds, the staff is recommending that Chair Penner and board member David Steinhardt work with BSCC staff to develop a request for information or an RFI so that we can hear from the counties about the highest priorities needs that they are facing for these youth and possibly recommend an allocation plan based on the input from the RFI. Alternatively, the RFI responses from counties may indicate such a broad array of needs and priorities that the board may wish to develop a competitive application process. At this point, we need more information from the counties about their needs to make those recommendations. The RFI would essentially be a survey to counties and should seek information about the number and location of counties that would be willing and able to support regionalization and specialized programs. In other words, which counties would be able to provide regional beds to other counties. The RFI should also ask about what counties need for planning and implementation activities. With the board's approval, we would draft and then release the RFI within the next several weeks. The subject matter expert of Chair Penner and board member Steinhardt and our staff here at the BSCC will inform that RFI development. We will then report back to the board in February of 2021 about the priorities and needs that have been identified and possibly ask for approval to award funds based on the responses we receive. And I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Just a quick comment, Madam Chair. and we're at the end of a long agenda already. So this is a grant program that is very minimally described, as was mentioned in the statute. It's just wide open and kind of contradictory. And that's why we need more input from the proposed recipients. There is no way that 9.6 million can satisfy every need that arises under the realignment of the Division of Juvenile Justice. We mentioned sex offender programs that we need to build capacity for at the counties, secure custody options that are still under discussion once DJJ closes. And what about girls, for example, the handful of young women who are in DJJ, and where do they go? And there's a lot of mention in the grant language about regionalization, and surely counties that have no facilities are going to have needs around where do they send kids that are more serious offense level that would have gone to DJJ if they need programming or custody. So this is kind of a shot in the dark to try to learn more about it, recognizing that even when we get the information back, it's going to be a very tough call on how to spend this small amount of money to meet a wider need. Now, there is a realignment block grant, much bigger amount of money that counties will have to spend for programming, but I think this grant is designed to somehow look between the cracks of what isn't funded by the realignment block grant. And I'll just stop there. So I look forward to working with the chair on this, and let's do the right thing.
And I had a question. Does it include mental health care? Because from our experience, we have a significant mental health population within our youth system.
I mean, I'm happy to answer that, since it could, but we could spend 9.6 million and it would be a drop in the bucket in terms of meeting the mental health needs of all juvenile offenders in California, or 707s, or even some of the really more troubling cases that DJJ has taken recently. So it could happen that way. My sense is that we need to address the mental health needs of youth in the justice system on a much more comprehensive scale with additional funding.
And I would tend to agree with that. I mean, this is one-time money, virtually seed money to figure out, processes down the road. So I'm hopeful that the block grant would have ongoing funding for that if we did give some seed money to that effort. But it's so early in the process and there are so many unknowns. This will be a heavy lift with urgency associated with it. Honestly, we need to get it out there as soon as possible so they're able to do the work needed before this population begins to transfer over. Any other board members? Any members of the public wish to comment on this item?
Madam Chair, we have 2 members of the public who wish to comment. The first one is Dominique Mong.
And before we go, we're closing the queue. Thank you. Keep going, Dominique.
Good afternoon, Dominique Mong from the Children's Defense Fund, California. Part of the staff's stated purpose of the request for information, the RFI, is to solicit information on the types of projects that should be funded by this grant program to assist counties in the development of a local continuum of care. We hope that the RFI will be designed and distributed to collect information not only from county public agencies, but also from community members, especially formerly incarcerated youth and adults whom the counties have been charged to care for and support. Those with direct experience being incarcerated and receiving programs hold invaluable information regarding what types of projects should be funded. They also therefore should serve on the proposed working group to share their valuable expertise. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we have Danielle Sanchez.
Are you out there, Danielle? If you're on a phone, it's *6 to unmute.
Good morning. Apologies. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Good afternoon, Danielle Sanchez with the Probation Chiefs. Just briefly, I'd like to offer some comments regarding the DJJ discussions. We certainly know there'll be a variety of needs, especially one-time needs, to be adequately prepared to remove the statewide piece of the continuum and develop the new responses contemplated by the legislation. There certainly is urgency to the need to get the funding out in light of the closure of DJJ, which begins in around or a little less than 7 months from now. We would ask the BSCC to prioritize the funding to address the needs that would stabilize meaningful options at the local level in order to dissuade the system to defaulting into using the adult system, which we fear may happen if the necessary local programs and options do not reflect the needs of the youth being served. We certainly look forward to being part of these important ongoing discussions as the probation professionals throughout the state remain committed to supporting and enriching the lives of the youth that we work with. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. I believe that's the end of public comment, Adam.
Yes.
Okay, I'm back to the board. Any further comment? Any further questions? Seeing none, I'd look for a motion in a second.
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion. Can I have a second?
Dean Grouden, I'll second.
Thank you, Dean. Adam, will you pull the body?
Chair Penner,
Aye.
Miss Allison,
Aye.
Mr. Verarosa,
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Grouden,
Aye.
Mr. Seal and Miss Zuniga recused. Mr. Barranco,
Aye.
Mr. Mills,
Aye.
Mr. Budnick,
Aye.
Mr. Steinhardt,
Aye.
Miss Kumpion.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion carries.
Thank you. David, I look forward to working on this project with you. Here we go. Go team.
Go for it.
Yes. We've now completed the formal part of the agenda, and we are opening the line for public comments by any members of the public on subjects either covered today or not covered today. Adam, I'd ask you how many are in the queue?
Madam Chair, we currently have 9 members of the public who wants to
Okay.
comment.
Will you
3 of which are the ones that we missed earlier that did not speak up during the agenda item. So we'll try to recall their names.
So is that the 9 included? Wow, that's not a house phone, is it? Who has that?
3 were members that we missed or did not speak up. So there should be 6 members.
Okay. Okay, we'll close the queue and move forward with the first item. I don't know how to silence a house phone.
First, I will call Marie Dominguez.
We can go forward, Adam, and come back to that if necessary.
Avalon Edwards.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Avalon Edwards, and I'm a policy fellow with Starting Over Inc. In addition to my earlier comment urging the board to revise its inspections process, I would like to share some more information about problems occurring in the Riverside County jails. 2 minutes simply isn't enough time to cover the wide array of violations occurring in these facilities. In addition to the life-threatening conditions I spoke about earlier, multiple people inside have reported that their voting rights were violated before the November election. It was reported to us that one deputy told an entire pod of people in custody over a loudspeaker that, quote, "You can't vote, so stop asking," end quote. The majority of people in county jails in California have the legal right to vote, and sheriff's departments are legally required to provide both educational materials about elections and easy access to registration forms. We request that the December inspections of Riverside County facilities include conversations with incarcerated people about both the physical conditions in the jails and the access they had to educational voting materials and registration forms. We also emphasize the importance of having conversations with incarcerated people that are secure and private. The risk of retaliation against those who speak up is high, and it is imperative that the BSCC protect people who want to share about conditions inside. Additionally, we would like to second Ms. Kumpion's suggestion of formally including community members who have been directly impacted by incarceration on the BSCC inspections team. Their experience with the carceral system is essential to adequately assess any facility. We hope that the BSCC will agree to receive inspections process revisions from community members through the official community forum. Lastly, I would like to lift up the fact that individuals inside county custody are suffering from extreme declines in mental health due to the denial of in-person visitation. In-person visitation with loved ones is essential to both the mental well-being and the successful rehabilitation of incarcerated people. Of course, the threat of COVID-19 must be taken seriously, which is why we asked the BSCC to investigate possible protocol for reinstating safe and responsible in-person visitation in county facilities across the state. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have an agency, No Justice Under Capitalism. Don't have a name for this organization. And we'll move on to Israel Villa.
Good afternoon. One more time, Israel Villa with CYCJ. Definitely endorsing Avalon's comments, supporting, especially including formerly incarcerated folks in the BSCC inspection process. Definitely supporting the BSCC looking into a proper and secure way to reinstitute in-person visitations. And then and I also want to speak briefly on SB 823, the closure of CYA or DJJ, however you want to call it. I think it's important for us to, this is definitely for us advocates and for us who were there, who were hurt there. This is much more than realignment. We had an AB 109 realignment, and we don't really have to go too much into it as far as its success or whatnot, but this is much, much more than a realignment. This is an opportunity to shrink the system, both on the front end, on the back end, and all the way through. I and many also are very, very, very much concerned with our children, more of our children being sent to the adult system, which is the worst outcome possible. So anything and everything that we can all do to collaborate and ensure that that does not happen, it will be acknowledged and much appreciated. Thank you all again for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have Charlie Hinton. Charlie, last call, Charlie Hinton. And finally, Madam Chair, we have Henry Ortiz.
Okay, maybe people were tired, or I don't know exactly what could have occurred here, but
was Michelle Strafacci's name called?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Was Miss Michelle Strafacci's name called? She was called earlier for public comment and we moved it to general.
Oh, that's right, Michelle Strafacci.
Hi, this is Renee with CJCJ. If Michelle is not on the line, I can share her public comment for her. She sent it to me by email, if that would be okay.
Sure, if it's not lengthy.
It'll be within the normal 2-minute span or under it. On behalf of Michelle Strafacci, whose husband has been in Riverside County custody for over 6 years, her comment is as follows. My husband was only tested once, sometime back in April or May. Additionally, he's been transferred between Riverside facilities 3 times since August and has never been tested before or even after being transferred. He has reported the drain not working in their shower in Indio, and they have been showering in black sludge for over a week. The grievance was not answered or addressed. My husband only tested once, again, for COVID-19. They go on buses approximately 50 at a time. One client of mine at Banning requested to be tested because of having symptoms. The jail denied testing again with twice, even after a judge approved it and the mother was going to pay for it. Guys were being pulled out and moved after being told they tested COVID-19 positive at Indio, but then the incarcerated individuals weren't let out except to clean and sanitize. They were put on lockdown for 2 days. Video visits are being denied because according to the jail, it's not COVID-19 compliant. But if that's the reason, why can incarcerated people talk on phones with only 18 inches separation from other incarcerated people speaking on the phones next to them? A video visit would be scheduled and more sanitary. It feels illogical and cruel. Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of Michelle. It's critical that the board consider the serious concerns of incarcerated individuals and their families. Thank you.
Does that complete the?
Yes, that completes the public comments.
All right. Well, thank you for those public comments. Thanks to the board members today for staying with us and, you know, doing a lot of important work. We have a lot more important work to do. I don't think any of us will deny that. And understanding that COVID has added a layer of concern we all share. And going forward, we will do our best to keep up with many of the many things that we have to do and heavily consider all the things that we heard today. Anybody else on the board want to comment before we sign off? Seeing none, next meeting is February 11th, 2021. I know people can't say goodbye to 2020 soon enough, so I look forward to seeing you with 2020 in the rearview mirror. Goodbye and thanks to everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Have a good one, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.